I swear this chair squeaks so much. Like, have you ever noticed this? You have no idea how many times I had to redo something that I've said because I moved in my chair. Anyway. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Gitte Marie and I just realized that it's been well over a year since I've done a reaction video to your eco-sustainability related problems, dilemmas. I don't want to toot my own horn because I don't necessarily feel like I always solve everything, but I want to be a sympathetic ear. Let's hear some of your eco-dilemmas and talk about them. Also feel free to chime in the comments and let us know your opinion as well. And if you want more videos like this, let me know. Because honestly, let's go back to sort of having just this channel be one big group chat. That would excite me. Anyway, okay. First one is a big one. Dilemma that I've been pondering recently. When discussing veganism with me, a friend said that we would still have the same issue with soy monocultures and environmental destruction if everyone was to give up animal products because we would need to consume more plant protein to compensate. Is this true? The amount of times I've heard this. Typically, how this goes is that I say, oh no, thank you, I'm plant-based, or oh no, thank you, I'm vegan, in a bar or restaurant scenario where we are a lot of people there. And sometimes someone will just pick up on that and just go, oh, smells like I'm about to have a discussion in bad faith. Monocultures of all kinds are bad. Like, they're bad for the ecosystem, they're bad for soil, they're bad for water. Generally, intensive agriculture of any kind is really detrimental. So anything that we can do to reduce intensive agriculture and monocultures is a really good idea. This is a complex issue, and overall I feel like we're also kind of discussing like this utopic world where no one eats meat. Like, that's also not really going to happen, like from a realistic perspective. So everything we can talk about are reductions and like changes of consumer associations and consumer patterns, and like having this like be a gradual thing. It would be extremely beneficial to switch out animal-based proteins for plant proteins because it requires a lot less resources and water and land space to feed humans than it does to feed livestock. Both because cows, have you seen them? They're massive. Cows are big, cool, but we only get about 20% of our overall calories from meat and dairy, which means that we take up this massive part of all agricultural land to produce only 20% of our calories. That is a really, really shitty deal. Even if we introduced more plant food specifically grown for humans, it would be less space to do that. I understand overall why this question arises, because if you just see food A and food B and you assume that they take the same amount of land and resources to produce, it's a completely fair question to ask, but that's not the case. Food A, being beef, takes up so much more. So, well, food B should have been beef. Anyway, we are not going to run out of space to grow lentils and peas and soy if we at the same time reduce the amount of livestock that we're breeding. Thoughts on Fairphone? It's a phone with a repairable focus, but I've wondered if it's a good choice for people needing to replace their phone. From my personal perspective, I think Fairphone is a really brilliant option. There are other brilliant options. Right now, I have an iPhone that is secondhand. Using your phone for as long as possible is obviously always the best option. The longer we use it for, the better it is, and the best options that I've seen out there are secondhand phones as well as Fairphone. And the reason why I think Fairphone is really fantastic, I think it was also like 4 years ago, I did a collaboration with Fairphone to talk about this specifically. So what they do that I think is really fantastic is that they have developed this modular way of looking at technology. It's easier to switch out screens, cameras, and individual parts of the phone. So if a new phone comes out, you don't have to buy the whole new thing if you just want a better camera. You can just take the new camera and put it into your phone. It's also much easier to repair. It's been designed so that consumers can open it up and do these things themselves. And they don't only do this for themselves, but they also take all this knowledge and all the things that they learn, and then they make it available to other tech companies so they can do it as well. I overall think that they're doing a really amazing job. I tested the phone that they came out with in 2022 and it was really fantastic. I know that previously their cameras hasn't really been on par with iPhone or Android, but the one I checked in 2022 was really fantastic. My headphones are from Fairphone as well, and I've also repaired them several times, and they make all the resources available for you to do that. No, why are you looking into my soul? Buying clothes from new, but only what you need, and actually using them for years versus thrifting with a fast fashion mindset. Why are you doing this to me? What is meant, if you haven't been on this channel for a while, or perhaps you've missed the videos where I've talked about this, you can see that the secondhand market goes up and more consumers are buying secondhand, which should be fantastic. And to some extent it is. But while it does that, fast fashion goes up as well. They amplify each other because consumers are thrifting with a fast fashion mindset. We're still not to any meaningful extent repairing our clothing, using it for as long as possible, buying things with the intention of using it for years. Many consumers, I guess, shop secondhand because, oh my God, there's a deer. There's a deer right outside. There's a deer right outside. So this is my camera. This is you guys. Hey girl. I haven't seen him in ages. He's called Ryan. We've named him. Overconsumption is a massive problem, and obviously the worst thing that we can do as consumers in terms of clothing is buy tons of new stuff, not really wear it, buy it because it's trendy, wear it for a short period of time, and then discard it. But the thing is, there's no infrastructure in place currently to handle the amount of clothing that we are using and consuming, which means that they end up in open landfill in Ghana, in Gambia, in South Africa, in places with even weaker infrastructures to maintain and handle these materials. And we are not fixing this issue by maintaining the same mentality and the same pace with which we go through clothing. The deer is eating my tree. We will never fix this problem if we don't look at why and how we use materials and not necessarily where they come from. Does that make sense? Honestly, I think the most beneficial for everyone would be to buy what you need from a new store, obviously depending on what kind of store that sort of affect my reply here. But buying just what you need in order to stay within our planetary boundaries, we can buy 5 new pieces of clothing a year. Sticking to those 5 new pieces of clothing a year would be better for the planet, I think, maybe, I don't have studies to back this up, than continue to feed the same consumer mentality that you would have done with fast fashion, but now with thrifted clothing. Not necessarily only from a CO2 related perspective, but because maintaining that mentality bleeds out into how we use products overall. So if we don't go in and reassess why and how we're buying things, I think we end up making the same mistakes over and over and over again. Shame on you, awful question. And speaking of feeling called out, what is more sustainable, living in a house, in a village, or in a city, in an apartment, considering all criteria? I made a video about this specifically that I will link down below, that living in a cottage, in a secluded house, is more sustainable than living in a concrete apartment. On most parameters, that just simply is not true, because it requires a fuck ton more resources to heat a house than it does to heat an apartment. And typically, those resources, the heat, comes from fossil fuels. Not always, and thank God it's getting better, and the energy grid is getting filled with renewable energy. We love to see that. So anything that we can do to reduce those things is a really good idea. Now, this might come as a shock, but this has also been a big dilemma on my end, because we bought a house and it would have been, from a CO2 perspective, a lot better, also economically, been a lot better to stay in the flat. Now, it wasn't really an option to keep living in that flat specifically, so we would have to have found another flat. And I have said I want to do like a bigger video where we talk about some of the issues with owning houses compared to apartments, and like what has been sort of going on in my head. Why did I then buy a house if I know that is not the sustainable option to do? I haven't relaxed in my opinion or like changed the way I thought about this since buying a house. This has been something that I've said the entire time, that there are ways of being sustainable whether you live in an apartment or a house. And there are some things that are easier to do in one place than it is in another. And then you might say it's bullshit and you don't agree. That's also okay. Like, that's why we're here. Okay. I was looking forward to having a garden, being able to grow my own vegetables. People my age buy houses from the 60s and 70s. This house is from 1968, and they renovate them to feel modern. They take all the soul and heart out of the house and they turn it into this grey minimalistic hellscape. And I really wanted to save one of these homes, which is also why my April Fool's joke pissed a lot of people off recently. And I don't know if that is a shit reason, but I feel passionate about trying to save and maintain something that belongs to all of us. Architectural techniques and styles that are from these times are going away because people don't respect them or care about them, and because there's it's your house, you can do what you want. And while you can, it is your house, you can do what you want. I get pissed off every week seeing someone not respecting the materials or the traditions that went into it. And I wanted to own something where I could maintain these things. So that is a part of it as well. That is perhaps from a like softer perspective, and you might agree or disagree, and I would love to hear you guys take on this as well. Then there's also all the nuance of how sustainable houses are in general. Where do we get our power, our electricity, our heating from? Is it well insulated? Are the things that we can do? All those things are also happening. So the impact of your house is not a static, and it's not the same across the board. It's not a one size fits all. Getting a renewable energy supplier, being mindful with your heating plan, all these things. And I've seen this in my comment section as well as in other people's comment sections, that you can't be an environmentalist and live in a house at the same time. And this black and white thinking is just really helping no one. It's sort of the same gatekeepy vibe as the, well, if you shop fast fashion ever, or if you aren't completely perfectly vegan, you can't be an environmentalist. What are we gaining from that? Like seriously, what are we gaining? Or if you have kids, you can't be an environmentalist. What an impossible standard to hold other people to. As someone who works in environmentalism, both from a consumer perspective, but also working with it politically and through NGOs, all the stuff that happens around social media that isn't as sexy as posting zero waste swaps. Okay, it's just to say all that stuff matters as well. And if we start making this cookie cutter version of what an environmentalist looks like, I'm about to get tired. And there are tons of nuances here. The worst thing, in my opinion, and now like listen to my cookie cutter version of what is absolute bullshit, is buying a house that is completely fit to live in and then tearing everything down because it doesn't feel in touch or in tone with current trends. Houses made in the 60s and 70s are made with fantastic materials a lot of the time. Also sometimes asbestos. Fixing that. But the wood materials, the stone carvings, all these kind of things, fantastic materials. And having them just disappear breaks my heart. I don't know if I answered your dilemma. I just started talking about my own thing. Someone asked about pet care, and I have some stuff to say here. Okay, eco ways of cat care, like what food to buy, how to dispose of the litter waste when you cannot compost it. The dilemma being, you don't eat meat, but do you need to buy it for your cat? First of all, would like to admit, in terms of cat litter, I'm not quite sure. So perhaps you can help me out in the comments if you have any good options. I haven't had a cat for like a really long time. About 10 years ago. I don't remember what we did, honestly. I think we got something from the pet store that had like an eco labeling or something on it, but honestly, I don't know how great that was, so sorry about that. But when it comes to food, I have something to say here, because I had a dog with my previous partner, Molly. If you remember Molly, she's divine and I still take care of her sometimes. I love that dog so much. And I'm plant-based and I feel really icky about buying meat. Overall, I don't buy it for my friends and family. If they come over to my house, they are getting a plant-based meal. For Christmas, if I'm doing the cooking, it's gonna be plant-based. They can bring their own stuff if they want to, but I am so lucky to be surrounded by people that just appreciate the fact that I'm cooking, and that is the end of it. Now, I don't feel comfortable having cats and dogs follow a plant-based diet. And I know that there is a big difference here because cats literally can't, whereas dogs technically can if you organize their diet in the right way and they get the right nutrients. I am just not in any way, shape or form educated enough in that matter to be able to give people any meaningful advice regarding it. You can, I've seen people do it. It's not necessarily recommended because you really have to know what you're doing. And most people don't. I'm not quite sure on the exact details, so you will have to look some of this up as well. But from my understanding, cats need meat because there are specific nutrients in meat that some omnivores are able to make themselves, humans included, bears and dogs. But these nutrients, cats cannot make or develop themselves. They need to get it from other animals. They need meat and will get really sick if they don't get that. Now, how do you then do that if you don't want to eat meat or if you don't want to support this massive industry? I think there is a spectrum here. Obviously, from an ethical perspective, this is different, but from an environmental perspective, beef and lamb are the most polluting types of meat. So avoiding those in cat and dog food, there are more low impact kinds of meat that you can opt for instead. Chicken is one of them. I think I saw some dog food and cat food that had lots of mussels in them as well. From a CO2 perspective, there are definitely better and worse options. I've also both seen and heard vegans say that they have animals that have dietary requirements that are different from their own, e.g. cats eating meat, and they go to the butcher and they get like pieces and cuttings that would otherwise have been discarded, so trying to save that food and then give it to their pets. And honestly, if you feel really uncomfortable giving meat to your pets, get a herbivore, get a rabbit or several, they don't want to be alone. Get an animal that does not eat meat. If that is a really big thing for you. It is not supposed to be at the expense of your pets that you have a specific diet or belief system. Let's do a rapid fire round. Okay. Impact of recycled toilet paper versus cloth that you have to wash. Cloth that you have to wash. The amount of water required to wash it, significantly lower than the amount of water it requires to create said disposable towels. Which is better, metal tiffins or plastic bento boxes? Depend on what you own first. So if you have to buy something from new, I would go for a metal thing. But if you already have plastic bento boxes, then keep using those. How to declutter in an eco-responsible manner? Decluttering has become kind of this trend where we don't look at why we overconsume. We just try to fix the symptom of our overconsumption, e.g. our clutter. So in order to declutter in a more sustainable or eco-conscious manner, we have to look at why we overconsume the things that we do. And we have to go in and reassess and do something differently. And when we declutter, we don't just throw everything that we really cannot focus on right now. We don't throw everything into one bin. We recycle, we sort, and we do everything that we can to give things away. Cleaning the toilet, don't want to use reusable towels for that, and kids don't know how to wipe their butts without wipes. Let me tell you what I do. I use toilet paper. I typically use recycled or unbleached toilet paper. I don't use any kind of flushable, like biodegradable wipes that aren't 100% paper. Some brands make wet wipes that can be flushed, but they can't. Stop doing that. I clean my toilet with a reusable cloth. It is completely fine to do so. You just have to wash it, and you have to wash it on high heat. And it's not even like an eco thing on my end, because I think people in my family and like in my area, like where I live in Denmark, it's just really normal to use reusable cloths instead of disposables. We don't use disposables all that lot, especially for cleaning. So I have like a system. Okay, so when I clean my bathroom, the last thing I clean, the last thing that cloth touches is the toilet. I clean the mirror, I clean the sink, I clean the table, and the last thing I do is I clean the exterior of the toilet and then the interior, and then I wash the cloth. Typically I save all my cleaning cloths in a little bin, and then I wash them all together, so I don't wash one cloth, obviously. I don't know if that's obviously, but I don't. I save and then I have a lot and then I wash all of it. I feel like that's perfectly reasonable in my opinion. It hurts me that this is something that people, they guilt themselves over so much. Plastic, the waste that comes from having special needs or going to the hospital, receiving medical attention. Don't feel bad. If you have to go to the hospital, no matter how frequently, it's okay. There are so many other things that you can do to be a conscious consumer. So taking all this in, internalizing it, feeling bad, I will not have that. That is the end of the dilemma. Ta-da! Don't feel bad about it. I say this with basically everything, but there's so many things that we as consumers, as individuals, we cannot control. And instead of focusing all our energy on being annoyed about the stuff that we can't change, let's look at all the things that we can change. That is all the dilemmas I feel like we're gonna get to today. Let me know down below if you want another video like this, and let me know your dilemmas, and let's make a part 2. Let's keep this going. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day, and I will see you guys next time. Take really good care of yourselves. Until then, bye.